The Minister of Communication, Emmanuel Rene Sadi, together with the Communication Secretary, have urged a strong warning to all promoters of violence aimed at threatening the peace of the country that shall face the law, and if they insist pushing through with their plans. We shall be having details in this newscast with Peter Nsosier. Plus, the Cameroon's People Democratic Party have launched an exercise to select candidates for the upcoming regional elections in the Meme division in the southwest region. And in sports, the Intermediate Lions of Cameroon have begun camping in Yaoundé ahead of the African Nations Championship in January 2021. And those are top stories. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining the 6 p.m. newscast on Spectrum Television. I am Josephine Bindzi. As announced in the headlines, the Minister of Communication and the Communication Secretary of the CPDM have warned instigators of an unapproved protest that the law would take its course if they push through with their move. This is contained in a statement released on Tuesday. Peter Nsosier with details.
The Minister of Communication has warned those planning a protest that the law will come heavily on them. In a statement Tuesday, Rene Emmanuel Sadi recalled that such acts are punished by the Penal Code as well as the relevant provisions of the 2014 anti-terrorism law. The government spokesman argues that the announced demonstrations cannot be termed peaceful when the aim is to trigger an uprising to overthrow democratically elected Republican institutions. Hence, those associating with such schemes will be brought to book before competent judicial authorities. Defense and security forces have been charged to take necessary measures to maintain law and order in the country. In addition to this, the Communication Secretary of the CPDM Central Committee, Professor Jacques Famendongo, says that the CPDM encourages plurality of opinions but will never support an uprising against state institutions. The Politburo member and Minister of State argues that the national sovereignty rests on the people and is exercised by the head of state and members of parliament. For this reason, no fraction of the people or those without a mandate can talk on behalf of the entire country.
Over to the southwest region, militants of the CPDM party for Meme division have begun selecting candidates for the upcoming regional elections scheduled for December 6, 2020. This was revealed by the president of the Investiture Commission during the launching of the exercise at the Kumba City Council on Tuesday, September 15, 2020. Catherine Kone completes that story.
The Investiture Commission of the ruling CPDM party for Meme division is meeting in Kumba for the selection of candidates ahead of the upcoming regional election in Cameroon, billed for December 6, 2020.
That's the first ever regional council in the country, and it be blessed as CPDM. From Kumba, 1, 2, 3, all the CPDM, all the elected delegates, 15 of the
The launching of the exercise, which took place at the Kumba City Council Hall, was chaired by Chief Justice Benjamin Mutanga Etwe, who doubles as the president of the commission.
The CPDM and mayors of the men who are here assembled and who are statutory members of this body, distinguished members who are seated here and who are statutory members, and you heard me over the radio. I recognize all of you here, and I want to welcome all of you to this meeting.
He called on the aspirants to fill all the conditions spelled out by the party before submitting their files. He equally urged them to respect the decision of the commission on the selection list. As of today, Wednesday, September 16, 2020, the various sub-commissions of Kumba 1, 2, and 3, Konye and Bonge subdivision received their files, which will later be scrutinized and the candidates will be selected. Their reports are expected to be forwarded to the Regional Commission in Buea for onward transmission.
1 week after Operation Bamenda Clean, transporters plying the Douala-Bamenda road have been grounded, leaving petite businesses in difficulty. Peter Nsosier was at Gare Routier Bonaberi and now tells us how Douala is catching a cold while Bamenda sneezes.
Packed buses, sealed bars and vacant seats all tell one story, that Douala is catching cold as Bamenda coughs out the unpleasant effects of the military separatist showdown codenamed Bamenda Clean. Drivers, petty traders as well as porters at Gare Routier Bonaberi are feeling the heat of the operation.
As a golden driver, we are not transporting more occasional people that were traveling to Bamenda, or the people that were going occasionally to Bamenda. We are not more transporting them because look at the park is too dry. We are here suffering because people are not moving up and down.
Customers that are coming to buy us food, things are not moving well. The business are very, very bad. Things are not really moving.
Feeling well because of this crisis outside. I'm a man with 5 children. Look, I'm suffering in the park. I don't know everywhere my children and my wife they are for 4 years today.
The situation used to be different before now, they recall.
Last week, I usually go to Bamenda 3 times a week. But now like this, seeing last week, I have not got any information to go to Bamenda. I have 1 corpse here last week to go to Bawanki. There was no means to go to Bamenda. So that's why we are here, we are suffering.
As the Bamenda road was moving, sometimes I'm working 8,000 francs per day. But since the Bamenda road have closed by the reasons of that day reach of today, I have not getting up to 3,000 francs. I'm working 2,000 francs per day.
As the operation to secure Bamenda from separatist activities unfolds, those at Gare Routier are praying for things to get back to normal.
Please, the country should try to solve this problem so that Bamenda way can pass. And any way that they are blocked, it should pass. So that we should have small things to eat with our family.
We should end fast. Let's think to move so we shall feel better.
In the meantime, Bamenda remains locked as security forces work out to protect humans, goods and services.
And let's now talk floods. Staying alert is a new code adopted by inhabitants who live at village in the economic capital, giving how much it rains and its devastating effects in the neighborhoods. Christel Asek-Swele visited some of these neighborhoods and has the following details.
The rainy season continues to cause untold sufferings to many inhabitants of the city of Douala in the Littoral region of Cameroon. Here, in the village neighborhood in the Douala 3 municipality, each time it rains, the inhabitants are plunged in a pool of water as their homes are flooded, putting their lives and that of their families at risk.
Vous voyez dans quelles conditions nous vivons ici, à village. Parce que le drain que vous voyez derrière.
We live in a very deplorable condition here in village, especially with this drainage you see right there. When it rains, there is no way out. Everywhere is flooded, putting our children at risk. Sometimes our homes are submerged in water and we all are at risk.
Nous ne sommes pas en sécurité et vraiment c'est pas facile, c'est pas évident.
For Mama Colette, an inhabitant of this neighborhood, she is obliged to be on the alert when the rains come pouring to ensure that she safeguards her belongings from being carried away by the floods.
Que la marée qui va nous amener, il faut que le gouvernement cherche comment il peut faire à ce que nous on vit aussi bien. Nous on ne dort pas quand il pleut.
The authorities should look into our situation. We don't sleep here. When it rains, everyone is on the alert. We uplift our belongings from getting carried away by the water. Even our children are not safe.
C'est comme ça. Les enfants sont dans l'eau. Les enfants nagent comme le poisson. On ne comprend même pas.
Others, however, blame the situation on the poorly constructed drainage system. We suffer here a lot, especially with the drainage system that is overloaded. If it could be dug a little deeper, it will be better for us. This situation is that faced by most inhabitants of the city of Douala during this rainy season, especially those whose homes are built in swampy areas. They, however, have their eyes poised on the authorities to look into their situation.
As the bells of school resumption ring louder, some schools in the littoral region are setting up their premises to receive students come October 5, bearing in mind the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, which the academic year will hold. Christelle Asexwele has details.
The wind of the resumption of classes is already blowing in the school in the Douala 1 municipality. Barely a few weeks before the start of the 2020-2021 school year, scheduled for October 5, 2020, it is visible that at the Misipo Moni Berna Nursery and Primary School, renovation works are ongoing to meet up with the actual context of the COVID-19 pandemic in which the school year will be carried out.
Actually, we are 1 month left for school resumption, and the first priority is to review all what was not done last year, considering the coronavirus that is really affecting the world today. So that is why we have to renovate with all kinds of materials that are necessary in order to be up to date. So the first
giving a facelift to the school structure and ensuring that the standards meet up with the COVID-19 barrier measures prescribed by the government is the preoccupation of the principal of the school and her team.
Renovate all our structures, all of the things that we have to put together in order to fight the coronavirus. So that is what we are working on now, that you just caught us at work.
This notwithstanding, registrations for the forthcoming school year are actually ongoing in this private nursery and primary school.
On our foreign page, Kenya-based reporter Rude Elmondop spent almost 6 months in Tanzania because of travel restrictions imposed by the coronavirus. But he finally made home after the skies between Tanzania and Kenya. Details with the VOA.
I'm in the National Public Health Laboratory in Dar es Salaam for a COVID-19 test, and filming is not allowed. The lady at the counter just handed me the certificate with the result, and it is negative. I asked her what happens if one tests positive. You tested negative, so you don't have to know what happens if you test positive, she said. There are many people wanting to travel now that the skies have reopened. At the counter there's a photograph of President John Magufuli looming over the test applicants. In June he announced that Tanzania had become the first country in the world to vanquish the coronavirus. On the way back from the testing center I wondered how I could have avoided becoming infected in the nightclubs we went. Could Tanzania be really free of the virus? Feeling sad to leave, yet happy to go, we threw a goodbye party on the beach. The next day I checked in at the airport after having registered on a self-quarantine app established by Kenya's Ministry of Health. The flight was smooth and I quickly found a taxi driver to bring me home. But as soon as we cleared the gate of the airport, I realized there was no other traffic on the roads. The driver told me that it's because of the curfew and that we were exempted because of coming from the airport. Roaming through a dark and deserted Nairobi, I started wondering where I had ended up. The reunification with my girlfriend was wonderful and we were so happy, having missed each other for so long. The wake-up call came the next morning with an SMS alert from the Ministry of Health, saying that it was time to file my health details in the self-quarantine app. Kenya seemed to be serious, a realization that was driven home when I went out for shopping. My familiar shopping mall has been converted into one big hand-washing zone, with soap dispensers every 20 meters. The floor is speckled with footstep stickers, indicating social distancing space. The tables in my usual coffee shop are sprayed before patrons sit down. The menus have disappeared to prevent infection. Instead, there are stickers with QR codes for downloading the menu onto my phone. Then there is the curfew and the closure of bars and restaurants. Now I realize how isolated from COVID-19 I had been in Tanzania. We are happy to be together now in a country where at least the virus is acknowledged and we are reminded to stay vigilant. What really happened in Tanzania we will hopefully find out after the pandemic is over. But I miss my friends on the beach. The alerts for my health check will continue for 14 days. Ruud Almendorp for VOA News in Nairobi.
In sports, the verdict of the case between the Association of Amateur Football Clubs in Cameroon versus Fecafoot have been heard at the Court of Arbitration for Sports as the country's FA finds herself in some losing battles at the judicial instances in the last 72 hours. Sportsman John Paul Sama has details.
The case between the Cameroon Football Federation to the Association of Amateur Clubs as FAC was before the competent judges at the Court of Arbitration for Sport for gross violations of ethics in the build-up to the last Fecafoot elections as they now await the final verdict.
The early went well, all the parties present their argument. Now we calmly wait for the green. As you know, the grievance presented by the club of the ASEFAC have remained the same, namely the exclusion of some statutory member from the General Assembly, failure to respect the term of the member agreement, absence of a quorum for the adoption of the statute, and finally failure to comply with the new law. And now we are still waiting the verdict.
This is coming at a time when Fecafoot has seen her back against the wall, with New Stars Football Club of Douala beating them at the set judicial structure, a decision which maintains them in the League One Championship. Barely 24 hours after that, it was the Cameroon Professional Football League which also saw herself reinstated following a suspension by the Mbumbunjoya-led FA. Will the country's football federation be hit hard by another ruling from the Court of Arbitration for Sports? Only time will tell when the final verdict between them to ASEFAC is made public.
On to this top story, the Intermediate Lions of Cameroon have begun camping today in Yaoundé as they prepare for the African Nations Championship in January. The coach had called for utmost concentration of players as they proceed with training after the COVID-19 pandemic. We remain with you, John Paul Sama.
As the Intermediate Lions of Cameroon arm themselves to defend the colors of the nation at the upcoming African Nations Championship, Coach Yves Clément Aroga has sent a warning signal to all, saying he wants players who will carry the colors of the nation to higher heights.
Je me rappelle qu'au stage que nous avons fait à Douala, certains joueurs sont partis, comme ça sans dire un mot, sont partis, sont allés signer ailleurs.
Certain players have left the country without a word, and I want to sound it here today that anyone who is not ready to go after the African Nations Championship should take off the jersey right this moment and leave, because we want players here who respect the nation and are hungry to win the competition.
Qui respectent la nation. Et il est question, n'est-ce pas, de respecter ces nations. Il est question, n'est-ce pas, de gagner le CHAN.
The players called up by the coach had a training session with the technical staff, knowing the stakes ahead.
Sure, it wasn't really easy, but it wasn't too difficult. You know, it's the first training session for the first camp after the coronavirus pandemic. It's like going back to school. It's like going back to school. It's like trying to feel ourselves back in the pitch. And I think it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It was free, very aerobic, and it's very important for a beginning.
I could say, just like what I told you, we're just at home. With the training that we are training at home is not sufficient to take us to that level we want to be. The training that we're training at home is not sufficient to be the champion. The training that we're training at home is not sufficient to even have a victory. So I believe if we could start at the zero level, gradually, with the potential we have, believing in the coaches, I know we can still do it.
30 players are currently camping in Bankomo ahead of a clash against South Sudan as they brace up for the CHAN, which comes up in January.
And that report concludes tonight's newscast. Thanks for watching. For more information, stay with the news in the French language that comes up at 8 p.m. with Renee Narcisse Moto. We will be back tomorrow, same time, 6 p.m. Good night.